Should Gunnar Stockton be Georgia's number 2 going into the 2023 season? This is we banter these questions around. It's just a question. I'm not sure I believe this yet, Matt, who came up with this question. You did. So what's your thinking here? And let's talk about this.
Well, I thought he flashed here and there at spring game, and I think that position is up for grabs. And I'm assuming Carson Beck is going to win the job. I think we all do, but there's still, that number 2 job. If something happens, or in a blowout scenario, who comes in first? And while I do like a lot of what Brock Vandagriff brings to the table, he can run. He's got a big arm. I think Gunnar Stockton, as we talked about before, is more of a quarterback, more of an accurate passer, can play the position a little bit better, whereas Brock definitely has the raw and physical tools. So I do think that it's a question that, should be talked about a little bit more. I think it's going to be a big time race between the two. And I think Gunnar Stockton's going to get a real solid look at that number 2, spot. And it'll be interesting to see how it plays out, Ryan.
Yeah, I don't think it's been a secret that I've always liked Gunnar Stockton a little bit more than Brock Vandagriff. That's how I felt every time I went and watched them play. And I watched both of them at least a handful of times. I think we all went and watched Gunnar together one time.
Yeah.
I just like his game a little bit better. I think he's a little bit better of a quarterback. I think he's more polished as a quarterback at this point in time. And I don't think it's a great thing as far as Brock Vandagriff's development maybe, but as far as physical tools, yeah, Brock Vandagriff's he's got a lot to work with. But I've always liked Gunnar a little bit better, but I'd be a little surprised if Gunnar's pass mark. I guess I wouldn't be surprised, but I doubt that Brock Vandagriff has slipped down to QB3 on the depth chart.
Yeah, I don't think that's occurred. So I would not change it if I were Kirby and them, even necessarily if Gunnar is there too, which to me does not appear that he is the 2. I think that it appears to me that your 1 is Beck, your 2 is Vandagriff, and your 3 is Gunnar. But I'm not gonna be the guy that turds all over Matt's premise, which is, hey, what about the future? But that future may involve Brock Vandagriff. Matt and I talk a lot off the air, and I'll get to that in a second. Make sure you're picking up our 2023 preview edition. It comes with double dogs. If you order double dogs, which is down below, you get our 2023 preview. And by the way, I've not shown the inside in some time. These are images you're not going to get anywhere else. I'll show one that Ryan Curley took. Nope, there's one of mine. That was Dylan Weber. Ryan, you didn't do as well in the Ohio State game as I thought maybe. But you did nail this image, which I'm going to try to get to as fast as possible. So if nothing else, you'll have that sort of image. But, when Matt and I are talking about these things, I would like to see Brock Vandagriff become more accurate with the football. I think until that happens, it's going to be challenging to be a really good quarterback if you're not as accurate as you'd like to be. That's number one. You can be a great basketball player, but if you're not putting the ball in the basket, are you really a great basketball player? Number 2, coming into Georgia, I thought Vandagriff would win this thing. I thought Vandagriff, and I still do think he's pretty raw. So I don't know if we know what the end game is yet for him, Matt. And Gunnar is raw too, but not the same way. I don't know if that's the challenging part for coaches, I think, is how they're looking at 2 different things right now. They're both quarterbacks, but they're not necessarily, Matt, at the same level or at the same spot in their journey. That's the problem.
Yeah, this will be Brock's 3rd year in the system, and we know he can run. He took off for one run at the spring game and was flying for 225 pounds. You look at him and watch him throw the ball, watch him run, and you're like, wow, this kid can really play. Again, like you said, just maybe clean a couple things up a little bit. You want to see him be a little more accurately consistently, and the release is a little bit different. It's not, as smooth as maybe Gunnar Stockton's is, but you talk about productivity, and they were both extremely good in high school. And Brock Vandagriff, his senior year, we watched him play as much as anyone. He was very, very good, and he was dinged up, and he still played better and better each week.
I want to say this real quick. He was dinged up that year.
Yeah. But then every time you go watch Gunnar Stockton, he throws for 4 touchdowns, runs for
And
2
then, but
more,
the
running guys
criticism,
over.
Matt, is that they don't play anybody up there. But when
Yeah.
they do play people and he still lights people up, I don't know. I think they're both quite good. But would you move? I don't want to be a prisoner of the past. I mean, I think it's challenging. I want to hear what Ryan has to say about this. I mean, do you understand what I'm saying? With they're both in different parts of their journey, Ryan.
Well, they are, and if Brock Vandagriff were to get passed by Gunnar Stockton, that means that a Brock Vandagriff transfer is what would come out of that. But and something we thought he might do heading into this, is he going to leave? If it looks like Carson is definitely the starter, and it looks like Carson's probably definitely the starter, and he decided to stay. But I agree. I agree with a lot of what you guys, what we've seen and what we've heard is that, a little bit of accuracy issues, a little bit of touch issues. You can see it at Pro Day when you're just, or at G Day when you're just watching all the quarterbacks throw. I wouldn't say I'm qualified to talk about the mechanics of a throw, but you do watch Brock Vandagriff, and it does look weird, and it does look like it doesn't come out as naturally. But I'm not going to sit here and critique that part of his game. Both of them played worse competition relatively in high school, right? 1A private and then 2A. So both of them kind of had that same stigma where it's, wow, they put up all these numbers, they're in the state record books, but they're not playing good teams. So I think when it comes to that, when you make that argument about Gunnar, I think you have to say the same thing about Brock Vandagriff, because he dealt with the same thing. But I do think Gunnar has developed a little faster than Brock in their time at Georgia, and Brock's got a whole year ahead of him. So, I mean, I know what you're saying there with where they're at in their careers. So, if Gunnar were to look like the better option, how soon would Vandagriff be out? But these are all hypotheticals.
Well, it is hypothetical, which I think is and we don't see the practices. I mean that's the part that's the hardest part, right? I mean, we don't see the practices. I don't mean that as a dig at Kirby. I'm just stating what it is. We don't see what we don't see, and I can't. I don't think that. I would not change it. I think right now Brock is probably your better option from what I've seen with my eyes. Now, Gunnar may well be the better option at the end of the day. I think what we've not talked about, Matt, is that there's a ticking time here, which is Dylan Raiola will wind up on campus before anyone started. If if Carson Beck's the starter this year, then no, there will be no returning starter in 2024 when Raiola winds up, probably, because I think my suspicion is Beck will be gone.
Yeah. And Puglisi, I really like Ryan Puglisi, and he's coming. But to your point, it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But that's why it's so important against these games, against Ball State and whoever they open up with. Not only do you want to get that number 2 quarterback in, but get that number 3 in too. I think it's important that they both get some reps on a Saturday in a real game to see what you could have next year. And they're only going to get better the more they play on Saturdays. And I think it's important to get both those guys as much experience as possible. It's tough to play 3 quarterbacks in a game, but they're going to be in a position where they're going to blow out a lot of these teams, and they're going to have the ability to do so. So that's what I want to see, because Dylan Raiola is coming in, and he's obviously very, very good. So you want to know exactly what you have with Vandagriff and Stockton sooner than later.
Well, they're going to have plenty of shots, because this opening of the schedule is not great. I can't remember. They're playing, one of the games is Ball State, but I can't remember who the other one is to start the season. And
that tells you right there. Yeah,
Tennessee, Martin, and then Ball State. I mean, there's going to be plenty of opportunity. And to be frank, I'll tell a quick story before we go, which is that Stetson Bennett in 2019 came in to play against. It was the third game, whoever it was. It was the week
Murray
before.
State.
Was it Murray? Okay, yeah. So he throws a pick. Do you know what I'm talking about right here?
I was in Vegas watching Keely Ringo and Darnell Washington play, so I was not at that game. But
that was a wasted trip. Those guys didn't do anything at Georgia. On sideline, Stetson throws a pick 6, And Kirby is he's not screaming at him or anything, but like he was coaching him in 2019 with the notion that Stetson Bennett would never play football at Georgia. I mean, that's what everybody else thought. Nobody was at the game. And guess what happened? So what happens right now really does matter a lot. And so I think that that's the part that everybody needs to pay attention to, is that both these guys are going to really matter in the future, clearly.